Hey college football fans, happy day to you. And after our week 5 slate of games, Chappy's going to give you the winners and whiners from week 5. So starting off with the winners, shout out to the Sunflower State, the state of Kansas, with not one but 2 teams ranked and 2 teams atop the Big 12 with unblemished records. We've got number 19 Kansas, who's 5-0. Narrow victory over Iowa State, but they got the dub, which was their second in Big 12 play, so they are now 2-0, and they're hosting College Game Day in Lawrence. Congrats to KU fans. And also Kansas State, who has outperformed the Jayhawks on a consistent basis over the last couple of decades. They're off to a pretty good tear. Number 20 in the country. They beat up on Oklahoma, and then coming back, they did not show any hangover effect against a competitive and better than they look Texas Tech team. Adrian Martinez doing good things over there with offensive coordinator Colin Klein, much like I had expected at the beginning of the season. Speaking of the Big 12, 9 of their 10 teams have winning records. The only team who is not above the 500 mark is West Virginia. They're 2-3, and the 3 teams they lost to are to undefeated Kansas, 3-2 Texas, who was ranked earlier in the season, and I think will jump back into the rankings and be a player for that Big 12 title game when all is said and done, because that league is wide open. And then their other loss came to Pitt, who was it was a close loss, and Pitt was ranked up until last weekend when they majorly stubbed their toe against Georgia Tech, but that's still a pretty good Pittsburgh team, a Pitt team that only lost by 7 to number 8 Tennessee. So kudos to the Big 12. Kudos to Jalen Milroe and Jahmyr Gibbs, who had to step up when reigning Heisman quarterback winner Bryce Young went down with injury and the offense started to sputter a little bit. Milroe, number 4, comes in and shows that he can run that offense, especially running the football. Now, he is a passer as well, but he's got legit speed, and we saw it with a big, long scamper against the Hogs. A pretty good Arkansas rush defense, that is. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 big jaunts, 2 touchdowns, over 200 yards. I think that he's somebody who we're going to see work his way up near the top of the Heisman race. He was my pick to win it earlier, or not to win it, but he was my best candidate for Alabama to win it, not named Bryce Young. I think that Gibbs, when all is said and done, has a better shot than Young does, just because the Heisman voters don't seem to like a repeat winner. I'm still giving the edge to C.J. Stroud right now, but Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is going to be a prominent player in that Heisman race as we get toward the end of the season. The state of Mississippi, the Magnolia State. So we talked about Kansas, but how about 5-0 Ole Miss, a win at home over number 7 Kentucky, and it was a win that didn't really impress Lane Kiffin. He says that they've still got work to do, and I agree. I think that game should have been put away long before it really was, especially to those who took them at -6.5. But at any rate, they're 5-0, and then you got Mississippi State at 4-1, who dusted Texas A&M, and we're yet another team that kind of showed that the Aggies are not as good as people expected them to be, and that program is maybe not at that level that Jimbo thinks that they are, and that others in the NIL circuit seem to think that they are. Staying within the state of Texas, though, getting back to our winners, TCU. How about that offense? They lose their starting quarterback in week 1 against Colorado, bring in Max Duggan, who some thought should have been the number 1 QB to start it all, but he is the most efficient quarterback in the country right now. He had 5 touchdowns in a blowout of what people thought should be a pretty good defensive Oklahoma team. That TCU offense is clicking. They're one of the top scoring offenses in the country, and they get it done from all areas. Duggan with his arm and with his decision making, but also his feet. We saw just how quick he was in that long touchdown run against the Sooners on Saturday. Not to mention 2 good backs out of the backfield, Kendre Miller, Amari DiMercato, but then the receivers that he's got to throw to. Quentin Johnston is starting to heat up, but before him it was Darius Davis, who's doing it in the open field, but also on special teams. And then you also have Tay Barber, who is lightning and a big-time downfield threat. A bevy of tight ends that they can throw to, Spivey and Wiley and guy's name is escaping me. I believe he's number 87. Garrett's his first name, but it'll come to me. I want to say D'Annunzio, but I don't think that's correct. But nonetheless, TCU's got the weapons on offense, and Sonny Dykes is showing that he is an offensive mind that should be mentioned near the top with some of those other names like the Rileys and, you know, the other offensive gurus around the country, Ryan Day and so forth. And then, you know, since talking the Big Ten, how about Illinois? Winner. They are now 4-1, and they really should be 5-0 if it weren't for a lapse in defense and maybe too preventative of a defense in the final drive against Indiana, their lone loss this season. They are out physicaling and brutalizing people on the line of scrimmage with their O-line, but also with their D-line. They have a very underrated defense. Ryan Walters is doing an outstanding job there, and, you know, Illinois fans don't want to see him go, but his name should be at the top of sought-after coordinators, or maybe even given the chance to be a head coach. There might be an opening at Missouri before the end of the season where he came from, and so keep an eye out on that. But back to Illinois, Chase Brown, happy to see that he's leading the nation in rushing. That guy is a workhorse. He is not only bruising, but he's also fast as well. I don't think he's given nearly the credit that he clearly deserves. And again, that offensive line, Tommy DeVito playing mistake-free football, throwing to targets. Pat Bryant is having a stellar season. Brian Hightower is doing good things as well. Isaiah Juice Williams is, you know, making things happen in the open field as well. So they're getting contributions from everybody that they need to get that from. And in that, on that defensive side, their secondary is playing really well. Wake Forest, good for them for a close win against Liberty. Then they come back and they take Clemson to overtime after basically leading pretty much the entire game. Sam Hartman, 6 touchdown passes, a career high, an ACC record. Jamal Banks came of age in that game. And then so this past week, there was the worry about, are they going to have, you know, 2 consecutive close calls, bring them down? Shame on me for not thinking that they would come out and not only cover the spread as a 6.5-point dog on the road, but then win it. But they come out there and they beat Florida State by 10 points, and it was pretty convincing. Again, Sam Hartman giving a lot of credit to Dave Clawson, and he should, and I'm going to give that there as well. Wake Forest has proven me wrong that they are, again, a player in the ACC. I thought that there would be more parity in the ACC and the level of competition would increase, which I think it has this year, but Wake is showing that they're at the top of that league right now. And, you know, that loss to Clemson is going to hang over, but who knows? Maybe there's 2 other teams that could help them out and dish the Tigers those 2 losses. And if Wake wins out, they're still a player for the ACC title game representing the Atlantic. And then finally, UCLA. You know, they're probably so sick of hearing about how good USC and Utah and Oregon are and how they're the class of the Pac-12. And then you got Washington, who starts off 4-0, and they're being crowned as a jewel of the Pac-12. Even Washington State with their road win at Madison, Wisconsin, and you know, starting off as 3-1, and Cal starting off 3-1 as well. A lot of those teams were being mentioned for deserving as being ranked, and UCLA was left out. Well, then they bring in the Washington Huskies, and like your boy said, they won, and they put up points, and their defense made the stops when they needed to. And so now we have the UCLA Bruins ranked 18th in the country, if I'm correct, and they're 5-0. And again, they're going to prove that they're a Pac-12 team that deserves mention and deserves consideration just as much as a lot of those other teams. So those are my winners from week 5. I'll get to the whiners here in a minute, but hit me with your thoughts. And sorry it went long, but it's what you do when you're passionate, and it's a great topic that every one of us loves, because if you're watching this, I know you love it too. I'm Chappy, this is what I know.